Dear brothers, what's happening, boys? Back in early 2001, one of my mentors sent me a book that's become a permanent staple in the Taylor Library. And it's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, who's an incredible author, has written some of my favorite books. I'll post a bunch of them in the description. But Pressfield introduced me to a quote by an 18th century poet whose name is William Blake. And in The War of Art, he uses this quote as the title of one of his chapters. And the quote is what titles this episode. Eternity is in love with the creations of time. Like most of you listening to this podcast, reading through old poetry and writing from ancient folks is difficult. And this is because, in my opinion, most of us are incredibly not well read, we're not as articulate, and we're less interested in actually having to wrestle with hard ideas like people used to do. So there was a time in my own life that I would read a quote like this one from Blake and just scoff at it as some silly nonsense that some old dude thought seemed profound. I would encourage all of you to grow up, much like I have had to do, because when you do that, the wisdom that you gain from these people can literally change the world. So based on the other writings that William Blake has produced that I've dove into, he seems to have a very high reverence for a higher power. Littered through his writings are talk about God, eternity, spirit, and the like. So when Pressfield examines this quote in The War of Art, he concludes the following. In some ways, these creatures of the higher sphere take joy in what we time-bound beings can bring forth into physical existence in our limited material sphere. In a very literal examination, it means that eternity, or the higher realm, or more specifically God, is in love with our ability to bring forth beauty in our mortal world. So it's kind of interesting. If you do a little bit of digging into the word poet in Greek, it really means to make. And oftentimes the word maker is referred or given to God. So if I'm going to make a conclusion here myself, I would say this. To create something beautiful as mortals is to bring forth the divine from our Creator, our Maker. So Pressfield, much like William Blake, believes that when we bring forth amazing, good wonders into the world, God has brought immense joy. The divine world relishes what we are capable of doing in our little human capacity. None of us are gods. And because of that, when we bring something incredible to bear, we're literally bringing the divine to earth, something higher to earth. So the real question of all of this is, how do you and me create something that is beautiful, bring something that's divine down to earth? And I can tell all of you that the greatest works or the most impressive accomplishments that I have ever had have been the things I've given myself fully to. Those pursuits which I have worked immensely hard on, and more importantly, consistently on. When I was tired, I sat down and worked. When I wanted to procrastinate, which Pressfield talks about at length, I sat down to work. Only when I showed deep persistence in my ability to work did something really incredible get brought into the world that actually made an impact. So, how do you make something incredible? You sit down and work. Not just once in a while, not just here or there, but diligently. Even if you only have an hour a day, I get asked this question a lot. Well, how much time do I have to spend on things? If all you have is an hour a day to devote to some pursuit, that hour is never missed. You become the epitome of discipline in that endeavor. Even if the rest of your life has ebbs and flows, the aim which your heart has set before it is never, ever missed. But this is, in my opinion, only a part of the equation. I agree that success is going to find you if you simply sit down and get after it. If you want to improve at anything, improve your golf game, spend more time reading, become a better dad, build a six-pack, create a business, get involved in a nonprofit, learn the piano, all you have to do is show up for a certain period of time, and success is going to find its way into your life in some capacity. You will get better at the thing you're trying to improve at. But I would be remiss not to mention a very important point. You can also show up and consistently be doing something that is damaging or vile. Whatever your aim is that you're trying to accomplish, it should be something that is inherently good, something virtuous. To keep it simple, anything which breeds lying, inflicts pain both physically or emotionally, slanders, or has any base, evil, vile pursuit is not going to be loved by the eternal. God is not proud of evil, and even evil requires consistent effort. It just so happens that that consistent effort is in the rejection of goodness. I'm going to leave that where it lies. But I want to finish up with a point that Pressfield makes, and not only does Mr. Blake seem to agree with it, but so does the great William Shakespeare. I'm throwing all the old homies at you guys today. I sound worse than my high school English teacher who I couldn't stand. Oh, how the turntables here. But in the event that eternity is truly in love with the creations of time, or what we create here on earth, it could be concluded that we could receive some nudges, some bumps, when we're trying to find our way along this path. Pressfield depicts this often in The War of Art as the muse who sits on your shoulder and whispers into your ear subtle ideas about moving forward and succeeding and challenging something. When we sit down and do our work, God's angels fall upon us. When we have a time where we have a block, or we don't know what to do, or we don't know what to say, but we have exhibited respect by showing up each and every day, that respect is often greeted by a line or a verse or an idea or an action that seems to come out of left field. Those angels, those muses, may just give us that little bump, that little push that we needed to keep going forward. But this does not occur unless we are consistently in the arena. So I've actually enjoyed reading a lot of Blake's work, and he has these writings called Jerusalem. And in there he says this: there is a void outside of existence, which if entered to, englobes itself and becomes a womb. For those of you listening, you can't see this, but the word void is capitalized, and I believe it's for good reason. When we are allowed to enter into the void because of our persistence and our effort and our work, we are then placed into the womb of that higher realm, that womb of beauty. And from that place, we're able to bring forth the excellent creations of time. And I promised some Shakespeare, so here it goes. I admit I couldn't stand A Midsummer Night's Dream in high school. As a 17-year-old football-playing, pizza-loving, egotistical psychopath, I could care less about anything that English teacher taught me, specifically Shakespeare. But I do wish I had paid a little more attention, because Shakespeare seems to echo both what Pressfield and Blake are saying here. And so Shakespeare says this: the poet's eye, in a frenzy rolling, doth glance from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven. And as imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown, the poet's pen turns them to shape, and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name. I.e., when we look to heaven and we're trying to create something beautiful, heaven comes to earth and gives what seems to be nothing a name and a place. I hate to say, but I must agree with all of these gentlemen. I apologize to Shakespeare for the late acceptance of his excellence. So, fellas, all great beauty, all great works of art, all the wonderful music of our time, the incredible athletic feats, the incredible businesses, the wonderful organizations, the brilliant minds that we have, All of these are created and are wholly beautiful when the mortal individual sits down, works with persistent effort, and most importantly, shows reverence to the higher power that makes it all possible. I believe wholeheartedly that everything I produce on this earth should be to honor God. Anything great that I compose has already been created, and I am just the vessel who's brought it into existence down here. This not only allows me to work with far less anxiety and fear. What am I to fear if I'm just bringing forth something that's already beautiful? How can I be judged if the person that I only care about judging me is the one who's bringing this awesome stuff down? But it also allows me to be more humble with the gifts I'm given. Not only does God love to see beauty brought to earth, but he blesses us when we show humility and reverence to our source. I encourage you all, before you sit down to write or you go into the world to pursue whatever aim you feel is worthwhile, say a prayer that God will allow you into the void, that the angels will surround you, and that you can remain humble as something divine is brought forth into the world because of your faithfulness. I'm telling you, boys, I do this each and every day, and I always do it before I write and before something important. And since I have done that, the wins just keep on coming and keep on coming. Have a blessed Friday. I love you all. God bless. Be strong. Let's get after it, boys.